action.
Hey, this is Jeff Wick, editor of the Fayette County Record. We are here again at AlgEternal Technologies in Grange. A couple weeks ago, myself and some of the staff here were getting wonderful facials courtesy of the AlgaLure line of products. Today we shift our attention to the farm and ranch aspects of algae. David Ramjohn, CEO of the company here, Agtivate. So now what is this?
Okay. Thank you again to Fayette County Record, Jeff and Becky and Pancho and Andy, Regina, the whole crew really. We're so happy to have you here again to talk about Agtivate, which is a living blend of microalgal cells. So one, it's alive. Two, it's not just one type of algae. But what this does is it goes back into your soil and performs a biological function in soil. So if you understand what soil is, soil comprises a living and a non-living component. If you do not have the living component in your soil, then you have dirt. It's that simple. Nothing grows in dirt.
So okay, so this will help stuff grow. I didn't bring a copy of the newspaper today, David, but I do have some paper here.
Right.
Well, what if we try it out?
Okay. So, you hear that? You hear that?
It's alive, huh?
Right?
Ah.
So it's giving you, it's producing gases. Because a living organism will respire, produce carbon dioxide, but these also do photosynthesis, and they produce oxygen. So once there's sufficient sunlight around, they will do both. They will do photosynthesis, and then they will respire. Or sometimes they photorespire. But this is yummy.
Oh, we got a shot glass here if you want to try some, huh? No?
Okay, so I'm just going to put roughly 1 ounce in here. Okay, so
Yeah, that's more about drinking size. So,
yeah, that's about 1 fluid ounce right there. And 1 fluid ounce, you will dilute that into 2.5 gallons of water, believe it or not.
well, let's see how it works straight in non-diluted form. Look at that.
That's
pretty
beautiful.
powerful. Now, Jay, I understand you've got some personal experience with this. Jay and Brent Yancha, some of the scientists here at AlgEternal, y'all have used this, right?
Yeah, we have. I've used it. Actually, my first encounter with it was in my fall garden last year, and I've continually been using it this spring and throughout the summer on my hay patch.
Wow. Hey, Jay, I think it's working. Oh, my gosh, look at that. In just a matter of seconds, the Agtivate has turned a modest piece of paper into a hulking copy of the Fayette County Record. Actually, we're gonna use some of that Agtivate to mass produce a few thousand copies of this. Get these on the newsstands this afternoon. But until that time, Andy, hey, you want to tell folks a little bit about what they can find in the new edition of the Fayette County Record?
So at the top of the front page today, we have a story about another wreck on the bluff, an 18-wheeler laid over, going up the bluff this time. It was hauling a load of Coors Light beer and kegs, and load shifted while he was going up the bluff, and the truck laid over on the guardrail there. So nobody got hurt, but blocked traffic for a few hours on Friday. Also,
How did that beer taste, Andy?
I didn't try any. Also, we learned on Thursday, last Thursday, that a LaGrange man, Cameron Williams, was died following a fight in Giddings. He was stabbed. Apparently, his throat got cut, and he died on the way to the hospital. The Lee County Sheriff's Office is investigating this homicide with the assistance of the Texas Rangers. Also, we learned last week that a 17-year-old student at LaGrange High School was arrested when, during a random search of the parking lot, authorities found a 9mm pistol in his pickup truck. That student's facing disciplinary action at the school as well. Then there's a student over in Schulenburg, Michael Hernandez, saved the life of one of his classmates 2 Fridays ago at Oak Ridge Restaurant. Manny Herrera, a freshman at Schulenburg High, started choking at the restaurant, and Michael Hernandez, who happened to have been trained in first aid and Heimlich maneuver, was there and was able to take charge of the situation and saved his friend's life. And then also the Fayette County Courthouse is finally paid off. Back in 2003, the county took out a $2 million loan to pay for that project, the big restoration project that took almost 2 years to complete. And earlier this year, the county got finished paying it off, and also just kind of by coincidence, they put up a new weather vane on top of the courthouse last week. So I got some photos of that to go with this story. Then also sports, LaGrange Leopards beat Columbus, Schulenburg beat Weimar, and Flatonia beat Sacred Heart. So all the county football teams at the public schools had a really good Friday night. The 6-man team lost their game, but be looking forward to next Friday.
That Activate worked really well. Andy, under the regular newsprint there's even a special section
That's right.
in today's paper, huh?
Vine and Stein. You can read this glossy magazine all about the fine wine, food, and beer that's being produced and made here in Fayette County. On the cover, we have our friends from Rohan Meadery, and a nice story about their products they sell over there. But read all about these great food and wine products that are made here in Fayette County in this glossy magazine today.
AlgEternal has an ad too.
Yes, and AlgEternal is also in here. They have an ad on page 14, I believe.
There it is.
Their wonderful Algalure skincare line and their soil amendments.
And Pancho, you've got some breaking news, not in this copy of the paper, but in the next one. You were out covering a new mayor being appointed in Round Top this morning,
Round
right?
Top has a new mayor, and we thought it was going to be the mayor pro tem, or at least I did, Ronnie Sox, who's the president of the bank. But being a man of sound mind, he didn't want that job, so he nominated a new resident, relatively new resident of town, named Barry Bones.
And you can read all about that in the next edition of the Fayette County
Yeah.
Record. But let's turn our attention back to Activate. And Pancho, I think you were going to see what the effects of this would be internally, right? You're going to mix a little of that with your water?
No.
I thought that was in the script. Maybe not. But David, tell us a little bit more about this product and the effect it could have for local ranchers and farmers. It really could revolutionize the way they do things.
Absolutely. We have been testing Activate using Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Services. They've been working on this for going on 4 years now. We're in our 4th year of trials out at Eagle Lake on rice, and they published in February of this year, actually, that poster was published by Texas A&M and presented at the annual Rice Technical Working Group meeting out in California. Essentially what this is showing is that you can use Activate and reduce your standard chemical fertilizer by as much as 75%.
Wow.
And still see an increase in your yield of 900 pounds per acre.
Wow.
So it's significant. You're reducing your cost and you're increasing your yield. So it's a win-win on that. But it's also the effect on the soil, because you're bringing your soil back to its natural state and you're not adding as many chemicals to the soil. So it begins to actually prevent water pollution, because we know that the efficiency of typical fertilizer is about 50%. So if you put 200 pounds of fertilizer on your land, 100 pounds of that gets washed away or just leaches out of the soil. That then goes into our waterways, it goes into our groundwater supplies, and it causes a problem. With Activate, you can reduce the amount of fertilizer that you put on, and the algae themselves support the life in soil. So as I was saying, soil has living organisms in it, and most of us don't really even think about the base of the food web in soils, which everywhere you go is actually these organisms. They are there, they're ubiquitous. They occur in the desert, they occur in Arctic tundra, they occur, everywhere. And they support the ecosystem in the soil. So if you're playing ecosystem Jenga, then algae is at the bottom, you pull that out, everything else collapses. That's essentially what it does. So this works independently of the crop itself. we are treating the soil. So this is not crop specific. We've had it tried on hay with really good results. Jay has used it on his hay, and I'll let you tell them how it worked for you, and you know, when you presented at the Schulenburg Young Farmers Show this past fair.
Right. So I've done 2 applications of Activate on our hay patch here locally, and you know, when I used the Activate on my fall garden last year, I saw almost instantaneous results with the plants, the vigor, the size, and the crops that they harvested. On the hay patch, I think with it being a broader, larger scaled area, I started really noticing the impact of Activate after the second application. It seemed like the first application had a little more groundwork to do to get into the soil and start doing its thing. And by the time I applied the second round, you know, the hay patch was really clean. I have pictures of my son walking out there barefooted. We did some testing on it, and just trying to see the different growth cycle, the harvest rates, things of that nature. I went ahead and decided for the first time to enter some into the hay show there at the Fayette County Fair, and got a blue ribbon on that.
Hey.
So yeah, I was really excited, and you know, speaking of, right now we're getting a nice shower out here.
Look at
Everybody's
that,
been
yeah.
waiting on some rain. So this fall I'll probably go ahead and do my third application. What we generally try and tell people is it may take anywhere from 2 to 4 applications once a quarter that first year to really get the overall abundance of algae into the soil. Not really so much as increasing the rate or the dosage on one application, but to give it time to stair step again. So
And once you get that soil back to where you want it, I mean, you're looking at a generation of a great hay patch, right?
And what a lot of people probably don't know or realize is that the algae, once you apply it and it grows and multiplies, it's there indefinitely. It's not leaching out like a normal fertilizer would be, to where you need to apply every year or before every harvest.
Well, y'all have such a great facility here. I think how about we walk through, and you know, as we you know, look at some of the things, y'all can continue talking more about Activate and you know, what's going on here. So now, what, you know, if somebody wants to buy one of these things, you know, what's the price point?
So per gallon, we are at $225 per gallon plus tax. If you are ag exempt, if you have your ag timber license in Texas, you don't pay the tax. $2.25 a gallon treats 10 acres.
Okay.
So that works out to about $22.50 per acre. And we think it's really worth the effort and the time, but it's cheaper than almost any other application that you could think about. And we sell from a cup all the way up to as many gallons as you need.
Yeah, you get.
So, safety moment. We are an incomplete facility. There's been, you know, some work going on, so just be careful as you walk. I'll show you any particular dangers or hazards. But as I tell everybody who comes in here, if you're with me and you see me running, try to keep up. So, everybody knows this as the old Oviedo Dodge.
Right.
And you can see everything is, you know, being worked on right now. We intend to completely gut this interior and rebuild. Now, we already have the architectural designs. But we're taking you now to the main production area for Agtivate.
We're getting a lovely shower right now.
Yeah. I'm hoping it encourages people to come and try some of this product, because now it's going to be kind of loud in there because the rain is falling and you'll hear. But these technologies and with, yeah. These come from a company that we're partnered with out in California called Origin Clear. And Origin Clear, their team, Riggs Eccleberry and JL Kindler and so on, I've known these guys since 2013. And this piece of equipment is what we actually harvest the algae with. So we would take algae from our production units, put them in a tote and bring them here and run them through this machine. Use any chemicals whatsoever. It's pure electrical system that does the work. I'll let Jay explain what the process is.
Okay, so like David was saying, we'll get a culture of about 100 gallons from the VGM, hook it up from the back side here, and it goes through a series of piping down here. Inside an electrical impulse as the culture runs through it. So it basically kind of cleans the culture up with everything. It'll affect everything except the actual algal cells themselves. So once it goes through that process, it comes into the bottom of this vat here and slowly fills up. Once we get the culture over these tubes, we'll turn these tubes on and they produce very small hydrogen bubbles. And those hydrogen bubbles adhere to the algal cells and bring them to the surface. They flocculate them through the culture medium up to the top. So once we have a full level of, like I said, this is about a 100-gallon unit, we'll turn these brushes on and it sweeps that flocculated algae onto this conveyor belt, which then spills over into the vat over here. And this is part of our finished product at that point. So you can see down below the vat is another valve. We empty it out. Now the last thing that we do over here on this end is we'll strain the Activate at that point. Run it through a real fine mesh strainer to make sure that we don't have any major fines or anything in there that would potentially clog up a nozzle or.
What's coming out right there is what's in the bottle inside.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
And you know, we on all of our 10 to 15 million cells per milliliter.
Wow.
And the last time we've checked, we've far exceeded that number. So everything is working really well. Same idea with the smaller one behind. Takes a little more time. Here in the future, or really now, the big harvester is dedicated to the Activate, whereas the small one will be dedicated to the red algae, the porphyridium. So.
Right back here, I don't know if you guys see all this algae growing away here. How many trillions of algae cells are,
Several of these facilities here. So this is our prototype, and the intention is once we expand to full commercial scale, that we will have one of these filled with 20 units, production units, and for the scale that I'm looking at, we'll have about 8 of these with about 150 VGNs in production. But the technology here is patented to us. AlgEternal Technologies holds a patent for these, and we build, so there's very little overhead cost in terms of what goes into this from our point of view. And to have the ability to grow it here and manage everything from here, this really is going to be our proof of concept. And the intention is not to manufacture here and distribute worldwide, but to set up facilities like these wherever we have a market. So we'll do one here, we may do one in North Texas to target the cotton up there, because one of the things that we've tested on is cotton, actually. We're in our second year of trials on cotton with Texas A&M down in Yoakum. And as Jay was saying, sometimes more isn't better with our product. We've tested with 2 ounces, 4 ounces, and 6 ounces per acre on cotton last year. And the results were astounding because the 2 ounce per acre treatment yielded the most. It yielded over 1,000 pounds of lint, right, with 2 ounces per acre. It shocked me. I was wondering, and I asked James Gricker, who did the test for us, is this correct? And he said, yeah. So we are looking at corn, cotton, hay, winter wheat, sorghum. It will work on garden vegetables. It will work on trees. We've had it on some peach trees. We've seen it actually bring an oak tree that had oak wilt. We've seen it bring it back. So it works on grasses. As I told you, it's not crop specific. It fixes the soil. If you have healthy soil, anything will grow. On corn, I just delivered, $6,000 worth of product to a farmer in Colorado who had used it before, and his results were he increased his yields by 15 to 20%, and he increased his test weight by 5%. So his bushel of corn went from 57 pounds to 59 pounds per bushel. A significant increase for the amount of money that he had to put in. We've had similar good results with sesame, and we're trialing on peanuts and so on now, but we know that it works. Some of the tests that need to be done, we will be doing those as we go along, but we intend to continue partnering with Texas A&M and the University of Texas to continue that kind of research and prove that what we say about the product can be substantiated.
I love that phrase you used earlier, David, environmental Jenga. And, it's just truly amazing that one of those puzzle pieces that, is rebuilding, people's farms and ranches, is being produced right here. And so thank y'all so much for having us. Jay, Brent, Mr. Ulrich, thank y'all so much. It's always just a wonder to come out here and see the amazing things y'all are doing. So thank y'all so much. Anything else, Scott?
Yeah, you can always find us online at FayetteCountyRecord.com, and look for us on Facebook, Instagram, and all these videos go to YouTube. We're also on Twitter. Thanks so much for watching, and thanks for reading the paper.